What is going on, traders? We got a few things to discuss, but before we get into that, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So, in my last video, I pretty much let you guys know that I'm switching from short term bearish to pretty much neutral. And I would say that I'm just only neutral for this week. So why am I neutral? Right now for this week, we don't have much going on. I mean, granted we have a few FOMC members speaking, and unless they really say something like out of this world, I don't see much movement happening within the market. Now, news can come out the sky, maybe Iran news comes out again, whatever the case may be, but I just wouldn't be surprised that we see a lot of consolidation this week. All right. Now, how big that consolidation is, pause, I don't know. But we do have news Thursday. We have unemployment claims Thursday, and then we have more news on Friday as well. So that is something to pay attention to. But at least for the majority part of the week, I don't see much happening here. Okay. Now, I will let you guys know that I am not much of a news trader. I don't trade based off news. I trade based off purely TA. But I would be crazy to not acknowledge that news does help, or at least it's an excuse to help move the market, whether it be to the upside or to the downside. Now, if we're looking at the NASDAQ weekly chart, as you guys can see, we've pretty much been trading in this range for weeks, months, years, right? And that's not really what I want you guys to pay attention to here, but it is something to, note. Right here, we have our weekly supply zone, supply and demand zone here, and then we go down to our daily time frame. As you guys can see, we're pretty much repeating what we're seeing on the weekly, where we traded within this range or this channel here over and over, and then we broke below that Iran news hit. We broke below it, and we broke below our 50 SMA, and we broke below our weekly supply and demand zone as well. And then we go down to the 4 hour time frame, and we're seeing the same exact thing. Right now, we're pretty close to our 50 SMA, which is around 1880 or yeah, 1880, 18100, give or take. And I did tell you guys that is one of my price targets for NQ. Now, the reason why only have the 50 SMA is because it's the most significant level that we are currently at right now. I do trade the other SMAs, 20 SMA, 100, and 200 as well. But I didn't want my charts to be too noisy for, this particular video. But right now, this is something to pay attention to at the 1880, 18100 level. It's also important to note that when we're looking at the daily time frame and we're looking at this particular channel here, you guys know if you've been following my channel for a while that I'm pretty big on retesting. We broke below this channel on the daily time frame. We broke below the 50 SMA, and we have yet to retest the 50 SMA. So I think that's our first target. There is a possibility, if I wanted to lean more bullish, that we could be looking at a move back to this guy up here where we have not yet retested this daily trend line here when we originally broke below it. So we have yet to retest this guy here at around 18,500, 18,400 range. So that is a possibility that is on the table. But for now, I'm going to be pretty conservative and pretty much say that the move that we're looking at right now is a retest of the 50 SMA, and then obviously we'll see where we go from there. Now, as far as Mondays are concerned, usually Mondays do mirror Fridays. If you follow my channel, you hear me say this all the time, that typically what happens on Fridays happens on Mondays. It doesn't happen down to a T, but I do expect more upside at least tomorrow, or if anything, we consolidate and maybe consolidate bullish and form a bullish doji, if anything. So that is my expectations for tomorrow. Whatever happens on Fridays usually happens on Mondays. If Fridays are bullish, Mondays are bullish. If Fridays are bearish, Mondays are bearish. Doesn't happen all the time, but majority, I would say at least 90% of the time so far, it's been happening for at least the past year. So something to keep note if you are new to this channel. Now, again, I think we're just pretty much going to retest the 50 SMA, and then from there is a possibility, okay? And I'm not leaning too strong on it, that we could be looking at a move. If we were to see more upside, we could be looking at a retest of this guy here. Now, another scenario is if we, and we'll actually get into that scenario in a bit, or get deeper into that scenario on the Qs. But another scenario is we just pretty much just keep trading within this channel. Maybe we retest around 17,800, 17,700 being the lowest I'm looking at. And then we just pretty much grind our way back to the upside, okay, where we just continue to trade within this bear flag or channel, whichever one you want to consider it as. And we just keep doing this move over and over all the way until we get at least to this retest of this trend line. Now, that's my the overall point in this is to be careful and just pretty much watch if we are looking at a move. If we do get more moves to the upside, if we get above the 50 SMA, to pretty much pay attention to this guy here. I think once we get that retest here, if we get that retest here, I think we're going to see more downside across the market. Unless we get absolutely amazing news. And from what I'm tracking, I don't expect any this week, if anything. I think we're going to see more downside if we just so manage to get up here. If we don't and we just retest this 50 SMA and we reject and we just so happen to break below 17,700 just to be safe, we'll be back below this bear flag on a 4-hour time frame. We'll be back below this bear flag, and I think we're going to see more downside in the market, or at least on the NQ tech side. All right. So this is something to pay very, very close attention to. Now, there's a lot of resistance here, a lot of resistance, and you guys know supply and demand zones is king for me. But I will be crazy not to acknowledge just how much turbulence is here. I mean, we need really crazy news for us to break through this area. All right. So we have the 50 SMA. We're pretty much in this weekly supply and demand zone. We have pretty much the top of this bear flag. There's a lot going on in this area here. Okay, a lot, all around here. Okay, all in here. There's a lot going on. So for me to even be really bullish and say that we're going to head towards new highs, we need for you to even say that. We need really, really good news because this is a lot to get through. A lot. All right. Again, wicks tell you where sellers and buyers are. I'm going to say it all the time until I don't know when I stop doing YouTube, if I stop doing YouTube. But point being is that in order to get past all of this, we need really good news. And right now, I don't see a reason for us to break past these guys. This is a lot of bears, a lot of bears, a lot of turbulence, a lot of resistance. So hopefully I got my point across. So right now, I would pay attention to how we react at the 50 SMA at around 1880, 18100. We just so happen to break and maybe close above it. Maybe we do one of these moves. Oops. We break, somehow close somewhere, close above it, we mount, and then we just kind of like grind higher all the way up to this trend. So that is on the table. That is a possibility. Do I think it's likely? Not really. It's really tough for me to say with all of this in the way. 50 SMA, all of this in the way. But hopefully I got my point across at least for the NQ. We look at the ES, we're pretty much looking at the same thing. We go to our weekly time frame, we zoom out. The ES is slightly different, but overall pretty much the same thing we're looking at here. We've been trading within this channel here. We can call it a bear flag or whatever the case may be, and then we broke out, and right now we're pretty much at the top of it. We're between the 50 SMA and the top of this flag here. So something else to pay attention to. We go down to our daily time frame, and as you guys can see, we broke below our weekly supply and demand zone. This is our weekly supply and demand zone. Okay, very tough zone to break through, and it took the Iran and Israel news for us to break through or break below this zone. And right now, we are at the 50 SMA at around 5170. Okay, 5170. I would say 5180, 5185. We'll actually say 5185, 5190, give or take, and then we're back where these guys are if we just so happen to break back in here. 5200 is a very tough level. I told you guys in a couple of videos, for me to even start leaning slightly bullish, we will have to see a break above 5200 and an actual hold. That way, we will be right back where these guys are, where all this turbulence and resistance is, for me to even consider us to consider seeing more upside. 5250 is the key level that I am looking at for any potential for us to start seeing all-time highs or new highs altogether. All right. So that is what I'm going to be looking for as far as the bullish side. We go down to the 4 hour time frame. It's pretty much the same thing across the board. We're at the 50 SMA. We're trading within this bear flag. If you don't believe that it is a bear flag, in order for something to be a bear flag, you need a flag pole, and we have our flag pole. So this is 100% a bear flag. Right now, again, still looking at 5190, 5200 for any type of potential upside. We'll be breaking back into this weekly supply and demand zone. We'll be trading with these guys in this area here, and then we could have a potential move towards 5250. If we break and hold above 5250, I think bears will start panicking and they will pretty much get stopped out of their position, and we could be looking at new highs from that point on. However, as far as the downside goes, we break below 5040, 5038, give or take. I think we're done. I think bears have officially stepped in and we're pretty much done. All right. As you guys can see, there is a lot going on down here. Not only will we be breaking this trend, we'll be breaking this, what is this, the daily trend line here as well. We'll pretty much be breaking below daily support at this point, right around 5040. All right, so we'll see if we see one of these moves happen. I really suggest if you're a bull, you start running for the hills. Okay, just a recommendation. Do what you want with that information. All right, spy. Actually, we'll focus on the spy for now. All right, so spy, same thing. Go to our weekly time frame. You're pretty much looking at the same thing as we saw on the ES. Surprise, right? You're between the 50 SMA and you're right above this weekly trend as well. You go down to the daily time frame or even a 4 hour time frame and you're looking at the same thing. As far as key levels for the SPY, 513 is your key level. Now, we are a little bit above the 50 SMA, but we are pretty much between a rock and a hard place right now, where we're trading between the weekly supply and demand zone as well as the 50 SMA. So something to look out for. If tomorrow we just so happen to break and hold above 513, we could be looking at a move to the top of this bear flag at around 515, 516, give or take. So something to look out for. All right. Um, that's really all I have for the spy. As far as this gap fill, because I'm being asked about this gap fill a lot. I don't think we're going to see all time highs before this gap is filled towards 505, towards the 505 range, 506. Okay, me personally, I think if we just start breaking below 507, I think we're just going to see more downside. The only thing that's keeping me from really just being heavy on the downside is that one thing I tell you guys all the time is that when we're talking about gap fills, gaps have very strong support and resistance. Very strong. It's very rare, unless we get absolutely insane news, that we head to a gap and then we just continue to break down. All right, more likely than not, when we head to a gap fill and we fill the gap, we see a bounce from there or a rejection, depending on the direction you're trading. All right. But more than likely, we usually see a bounce from any type of gap fill. So I would be looking out for that. But we can be heading as low as 505, 506 range on the SPY. I don't think at any point in time this week we're just going to immediately start breaking new highs without filling this gap on the SPY. If we don't fill this gap like almost immediately, then I would be very scared for the future of the market. All right, if we just continue higher. So I do expect this to happen sometime this week, maybe Wednesday, if anything. I don't know, but be on the lookout for this potential gap fill. We may just start seeing this happen tomorrow. It is a possibility, but for now, based on historical data, I have to lean more bullish heading into tomorrow. How bullish? I don't expect too much, but we could be heading as high as at least 515, 516. We'll be right where these guys are. And in order for us to really break high, like traders are saying 10% rally and things like that, and just like these guys just don't exist here, and we just have some insane news this week. I don't think that's happening. All right, that's crazy. But anyway, looking at the triple Qs. Triple Qs pretty much the same thing we were looking at on the Nasdaq. All right. Um, there's not much to go over here. I mean, we just go over our key levels, but as far as triple Qs, you're trading in this channel. Once again, you go down to the daily time frame and you're looking at the same exact scenario. Shocker, right? Right here on the triple Qs, you traded in this range, and then you pretty much broke down. Iran news kicked in. We broke below this weekly supply and demand zone, or we broke into this weekly supply and demand zone. And I've been saying in multiple videos that for the longest time, we've been consolidating. We haven't really gone gotten away from this weekly supply and demand zone. We broke above it, and we pretty much been consolidating for like weeks at a time above it. And then Iran, Israel news kicked in, and we finally broke through it, and then we broke below it. And now we're forming another bear flag. We're at the 50 SMA, and it doesn't look like we have much more room. Again, I am big on retest, and as you guys can see right here, it might be tough to see. Hopefully not, but hopefully you guys can keep up with this. But right here, like I said on the Nasdaq, we haven't retested this. Okay, at around 440. After that Israel news kicked in, we pretty much just broke down and never came to retest at least the 50 SMA. All right, which I have been telling you guys that if we get back above 430, and even before that situation or before the drop continued, um, even before then, I was pretty much saying 436 is a key level. We pretty much hit that spot on Friday, and right now, there is potential for a rejection here. Maybe we start filling this gap towards 427 before we see maybe one more move to the upside. Highest I'm looking at is 440. Okay, 440. And the reason why I'm looking at 440 is, like I said, here we could be looking at a retest towards this guy here. I don't think we're going to see much more upside after 440, at least short term. Okay, at least short term. The reason being is that, I mean, look at it. I mean, we have a ton of resistance here. Not only if we're just ignoring all this, all right. If we're just ignoring all the trend lines and whatnot, I mean, look at this. We have to get right back above these guys. Okay, this is a lot of turbulence, and like I said, there's not much news happening this week for me to even consider a possibility of us just doing one of these moves, where we even break in here where these guys are, and then we just continue higher and start making all-time highs, a 10% rally like to the upside. Like, what are we talking about here? So is it possible? Sure, maybe some, I don't know, maybe some unicorn news comes out the sky. I don't know. But right now, I just really think it's unlikely. Okay. Again, we could look at one of these moves where we head towards 427, start heading back up to the upside, hit 440, one more good time, and then we start to break down. Okay. Uh, I let go of the mouse. So but you guys get the idea. We hit the gap fill. I tell you guys all the time, gap fills have very strong support and resistance, probably some of the strongest out there. You head back up to this trend line, maybe retest this trend line at 440, 441 range, give or take, and then you start to actually break down. All right. Again, the reason why we're heading to 440 is simply to retest this trend line. So be on the lookout for that potential move. But the overall point in this video in general is to pay attention to the triple Qs and the NQ and have these trend lines marked out. Okay, if you can't like really plot it or whatever the case may be on the triple Qs, I think the NQ is a lot easier to plot, at least in my opinion, for this particular scenario. Again, you're just looking at, I mean, it's all connected. I don't make this stuff up. I'm not trying to have a super bearish bias or anything like that. I'm just giving you guys what the charts are giving me. I'm giving you guys what the 50 SMA is giving me. Okay. I'm not making this stuff up. Okay. So that is what I'm looking at least for the futures market. Okay. If you need more confirmation, SQQQ. Okay, if you don't know, SQs just pretty much moves inverse of the market. And as you guys can see, same thing on the SQs, we are at the 50 SMA. Now, there is potential for more downside on the SQs. We can start heading as low as about 10.5, 10.8 range before we see another bounce up. For some reason, every time I mark supply and demand zones here, they just don't appear or they disappear. I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. But regardless, that is the potential move that we could be looking at as far as the SQs. I mean, we get a better look on the 4 hour time frame. We're kind of like trading below the 50 SMA. So again, like I said, there is potential for more upside heading into tomorrow where we can head towards 10.8. And if you don't know, I don't know if I discussed this in a video or maybe in the Discord, but as far as 10.8 goes, that is a monthly support level. Okay. Very important level. So I will pay attention to how we react at 10.8, and then we could be looking at a move towards 12. Okay. So again, SQs moves inverse of the market. Bitcoin. Let's actually get a better look here. So Bitcoin, it has more room to the upside. It has potential room to the upside right now. We zoom out, as you guys can see, we are pretty much at this trend line here, pretty close to it. and I think we're going to see more downside. I think the next downside move, like the real downside move we get from Bitcoin, is going to start heading towards 54K. If you've been following my channel so far, we've been pretty spot on. Okay, as far as Bitcoin goes, I told you guys my one of my first targets is 57K. We hit that. I think after this or the next big down move we get is towards 54K. So I do think there is potential for more upside if we're talking about how Monday is turning or is going to turn out, where we could see a move as high as about 66, 67K before we start seeing that more downside on Bitcoin. I'm still short-term bearish on Bitcoin. I don't think Bitcoin is just going to leave the market. Okay, that just doesn't happen. This is so rare for it to happen. Okay, if you are following somebody on YouTube that's just like Bitcoin is going to 100K, that you're basically saying the market is going to make all-time highs at that point, and Bitcoin is not going to leave the market behind. Okay, it's just not. Is Even if it did, at some point the market is going to catch up, or the market or Bitcoin is going to catch up with the market. But one doesn't go too far from the other. All right, so that is something to pay attention to. But if we're talking about all-time highs or new highs on Bitcoin, then we should be talking about the same thing for the market. And right now, I just don't see that on the table. All right, I still think Bitcoin has more downside to go. Um, we're in a trade on Bitcoin in the Discord as well. We got in 63,700, and I don't have Discord tab up right now, but we're in 63,700, and my target is pretty much around, I want to say 60K, if not lower. So I do think Bitcoin is going to head lower at least sometime this week if we don't just consolidate majority of the week. So be on the lookout for that. That's really all I have. I just wanted to give you guys a more better picture. I kind of rushed through my last video because of technical issues, but I want to give you guys a better picture of what I'm looking at least for this week and maybe in the near future. I'm pretty neutral for this week, but I still think there's potential for more downside. I mean, I pretty much mapped it out for you guys. I mapped it out for the weeklies, I mapped it out for the dailies, and I mapped it out for the 4 hour. So do what you with this information what you want. I know everybody doesn't believe in patterns as far as trading. So, make sure you find your own confirmation when you are looking at your charts and see if they correlate. If they don't, feel free to disagree below. Let me know something. Maybe I've missed something. And if you do agree, feel free to comment below as well. But that's really all I have. Last thing I want to say is that the YouTube channel has been growing crazy. Um, I really appreciate it. I'll start doing some giveaways. We finally hit 2K subscribers. I'm trying to think of like a giveaway to do, but really, really appreciate the support. I mean, it's just been growing way faster than I expected. And I will try my best to just continue to provide quality and, make the channel even better. So, really appreciate the support, guys. And that's really all I have. Until the next video, have a good one, traders.